Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I get a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Schon Dsgn Machined Pen. Yes, that is literally its name, the machined pen. But anyway, so there you go. First off, though, in the name of full disclosure, I gotta let you know this guy was sent to me by Schon Dsgn. I'm a big fan of Schon Dsgn's work. He's a guy based out of Philly. Seems nice enough, and has done really cool work, right? Previously on the channel, but he reached out to me, said, "Hey Nick, I got a new version of this. You want to check that?" I said, "Sure, yeah, absolutely." But I sent him full disclaimer on my website. Told him I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly. Might be a gem, might be junk. He did still send it along. Nonetheless, we have to assume this is the very best quality controlled one of these guys ever, and I'm doing my best not to let that affect the nature or the quality of my review. Next thing, let's do some size comparison real quick. We'll start off, actually, it's kind of hard to do this, so I'll do it in two stages first. Here it is in its full deployed state. Here it is against a pen I stole from a Hampton Inn, sorry about that Hampton Inn, against a Bic Click stick pen. Here it is against a Parker Jotter, which is a perfectly reasonable, also Parker refill sort of guy. Here, I'll align at the tip. So we see here, this is actually in fully deployed state, longer than your Jotter. Here it is against, what the heck, Urban Survival Gear, the Tie Scribe Go. Here it is against the Grimsmo Pens Saga, which is another intricately machined sort of thing. Here it is against a side click pen from Tactile Turn, and I think Pilot G2 is going to round it out. The other thing I want to compare it against are a couple of other pocket pens, right? Because this is in many ways a pen that feels best designed for a pocket. So I'll put it up here against the Schon Dsgn Pocket 6, which is a much smaller pen in the pocket at the very least. Here it is against a Fisher Space Pen Bullet, so you can see relatively small. And here it is against one of my very favorite everyday carry pens. This is a Machine Era Classic, also in a brass this point. So what we see here is this is actually, it's a reasonably thick pen, right? This is thicker than almost everything I had on the table, maybe even thicker than the Tactile Turn here. It's a thick boy, but it is not particularly huge in this dimension. So there is that. Next thing, a quick note, this is a $150 pen, although actually this is closer to $210 because this has all of the components that make it the Trio. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but in case you're looking at this going, oh, cool, cheap pen, no, not so much. This is actually a very nicely machined thing that is a little bit on the expensive side. So let's go on ahead and talk about what's good and what's not so good about this little guy right here. So on the good side, to start with, this is being made here in the States, right? Schon Dsgn is based, or at least was based, out of Philadelphia, here in the States, and he's an independent craftsman. I gather he's got a couple of employees around the place. I don't know the size of the enterprise at this point, but either way, he's doing a lot of work on these, and it's always nice, at least for me, to support the home team, right? And I'm sure you feel the same way for your country, but it's made by actual artisans who've made this their craft, and at least to me, that's a beautiful thing. Next thing, refill-wise, this is very, very boring in that this is just a good old-fashioned Parker refill here. If I take this out, we see right here we got ourselves a Schmidt Easy Flow 9000 sort of cartridge in there, but this will accept any Parker-style refill. One thing that's worth noting is there are no springs or anything like that in this guy. This is a single machine piece of brass, as is this, as is, you know, the only parts to this are this, an O-ring right here, the clip with 2 screws, and then those 3 chunks, right? This is not a complicated pen in any way. So you just put the refill in, and then you screw the grip in. And so it is Parker compatible, but that is, to the best of my knowledge, it. It's worth noting, though, that there are a lot of refills that can be made Parker compatible, right? Space pen refills have a little adapter that allows you to Parkerize them. That means something different to most people, but nonetheless, so this could fit a space pen insert. You just have to get the little Parker extension on the back there. Nonetheless, it's a Parker-compatible thing, non-proprietary, no springs or anything like that. Next thing, this guy has a cap on it, as you can quite clearly see, but it also posts, meaning you can put the cap onto the back of the pen right here. And it does so quite nicely. Not only is the threading absolutely great, but it feels really nice in the hand. This is a pen that is quite substantial. It is quite heavy. We'll talk about that later on. But as it goes on there, just writing, and by the way, I'm not going to do a fancy writing demo because it's a freaking Parker refill, right? If you want to know how a Parker refill writes, just Yeah, you've got one. Probably, if you're watching this, you probably have one. So anyways, but in terms of balance and whatnot, it feels great with the cap posted. And it's worth noting that you actually don't need, at least with my relatively small hands, I can still write with this guy without the cap posted. So for instance, if I just have this in my pocket, I need to sign something real quick, I can just take this out, unscrew the cap, keep the cap in my other hand, go ahead, sign it, and then cap it back up, right? Unlike some pens that really aren't writable at their natural size, like the Fisher Space Pen. This is just a little bit too small for me to write. I mean, I can do it. It's just, it's a little awkward. This feels like it's in a good size range for that. So anyways, there is that. Next thing, this does have a clip on it. And in some ways, it's a great clip, right? It works fine. And a lot of times what I did is I just carried this clip to the rim of my pocket. It's heavy enough that it stayed right there, and the clip is tight enough that it works well. But it is a small clip. It is a subtle clip, but it is pretty effective. It is removable, by the way, and actually you can see that if you look down inside there. I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah, if you look down at the very bottom of that, may not be able to focus on it, but there are actually 2 screw holes in there that you can take a see, but nonetheless, this is there. It's also worth noting that the clip is actually machined on a very small flat, or it's put on a very small flat that's machined into the knife itself. This is not a knife, by the way. This is a pen. If you've gotten this far into the review and have not determined that this is not a knife, then, well, you got other problems, and none of them have to do with selection of pens. Although, actually, they might, because... Anyways, moving on. But it's a fine little clip. It's removable, but maybe most importantly, this doesn't really roll, right? I can put this down on an uneven desk, and it will stop. It will just... The clip will stop it from rolling. That is one advantage that this has relative to the Pocket 6, which will just kind of roll through the frame there and stops naturally of its own inertia, or the Machine Era Classic, right? This does not really, if I do that, it just sort of stops. So that's a nice little detail. I like that very, very much. Next thing, this is sort of unique in the fact that it can be converted. Right now it is shipped with a Parker refill, right? And that is the way that I got it. And in fact, that is the way that I carried it for the majority of the use. But the thing is, Schon Dsgn also sells a head on it that is going to be a good old-fashioned fountain pen, as well as a cartridge-fed rollerball. Actually, let me fetch a standard cartridge for this guy. And this just uses a good old-fashioned cartridge. And what you do is you just take the cartridge and you just press it into there. And I'm not going to fully do it because then I have to prime everything and whatnot. But nonetheless, you can just push the cartridge into there and it works just fine. This is, by the way, also the same grip that you see on, although this is a slightly different design for it, but this is the same grip you see on the Pocket 6. And I've carried and really appreciated the Pocket 6 fountain pen. So this is a nice little detail there. Here, let me, this goes there. There we go. Nope, this goes here. So you can swap this out to a cartridge-fed rollerball pen or a fountain pen as you see fit, right? And they actually have a set option on the website that allows you to get all 3 of those guys for $210, up from the original $150. And that's actually not that bad, all things considered, right? It's not cheap. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's cheap, but at the same time, it's pretty good. And if you need crazy capacity, and this is, by the way, not something I can officially endorse, I didn't try it, but I bet you could actually make this into an eyedropper style pen where you just fill the entire back with ink. It's maybe a little dangerous, right? Your mileage may vary, but I bet this could eyedropper pretty well. So anyways, dangerous in the sense that you might get ink spillage, right? It's not going to, like, explode. But anyway, well, okay, technically it would, but what would come out is ink rather than shrapnel, and that's not that scary. Boy, I'm on fire today. So anyways, you got the option to get a rollerball or this, and you also get a couple of different options for the nib, including a stub nib. This is a stub-style nib, and with a stub nib, we'll give you an absolutely beautiful, come here, piece of paper. Are you a piece of paper? Yes, you are. Here we go as I fall over backwards. I can write with this. Hopefully this is, yeah, here we go. And so what we see here is you get different line widths depending on things. It's kind of a nice little option. And it's something I always recommend to people who've not really found the utility in fountain pens. Stub nibs really add something a little bit special. So anyways, there is that. Next thing, this guy is very nicely machined. And actually, the last thing on the good side, this is very nicely machined. Right, if we look at it very carefully, what we see are a lot of nice little details. So for instance, these lines up at the top here, Those are very, very nice, right? They're very nicely done. We see very nice finishing along the top. And by the way, this is well carried. I've had this in my, I've actually had this on my table for review for a while now, right? It was one of those things that kind of got into my pocket and stayed there for a good long time before I realized, oh yeah, I got to review this, right? So, yeah, this has been definitely carried a fair bit. So any of the wear you're seeing is, well, natural wear from carrying it, right? But we also see it has a very, very nice little chamfer around the ring in the middle there. You get Schon Dsgn, their word mark there, as well as this little pattern here, which is 12 dots, which would make sense because this is a 12th anniversary sort of thing. You get that little flat area underneath the clip, and the clip actually works quite well too, and it's held on there very well. You can see where the flat area stops underneath the clip there. The threading on this is quite nice. This is beautifully machined, such that the threading is very, very smooth, very hydraulic. It's a beautiful thing. Overall, and even on the back here, the threading is very present, very easy to use, but it's not particularly sharp. It's not going to cut you open kind of threading, right? This is a pen that is sort of a textbook example of simple thing done well, right? This is not the most intricate sort of thing. I mean, comparing it to like the Pocket 6, which has this very intricate patterning on the outside, this is an order of magnitude more just kind of basic, but it is basic in the sense that it's been done very, very well, and he's put a lot of care into it still. So this particular one here is extremely well machined, and I really do appreciate that. So to me, all that's the good. It is nicely machined. It is convertible from a Parker refill to a fountain pen or to a cartridge-fed rollerball, both of which work fine, and I've tried the same nibs and whatnot in my Pocket 6 and carried it that way, a fair amount. It has a nice clip. By the way, it's worth noting, I don't think the Pocket 6 accepts a Parker refill because that's a little long for it. But anyways, nonetheless, it's got a very nice clip to it. It does not need to be posted to write, but it absolutely writes beautifully when posted. It is Parker compatible, and it's made in Philly in the States here by a pretty nice guy. On the bad side, to start with, the Machined Pen is the name of this thing, which is kind of hilarious to me, right? This is kind of like the cut leather as the title of a wallet, or the constructed car as the model name for a car. Like, I get it. It's very hip. But yeah, so, what are you carrying? The Schon Dsgn Machined Pen? Yeah, which what? What's it called? The Machined Pen. You gotta who's on first. Anyways, I digress. Next thing, this is this being brass here, wheel patina, right? A nice example of this is I kind of purposefully kept these subcomponents in pristine condition, because I could also use the ones from my Pocket 6. And this shows you what it looks like fresh out of the box polished. And mind you, you can always polish this back up, right? You can take a polishing cloth, and I'll see if I can do it for a little part of it here. But yeah, if you just use a polishing cloth, you can get it back to a very, very nice finish. I mean, you saw how quickly that happened, right? This is not very hard to refinish, right? So, but you will constantly be fighting patina, and patina will win because that is the nature of chemistry and life more broadly. So anyways, this is definitely not how it looks half polished. Okay, I better continue this process. Anyway, so it is definitely going to patina. That is a thing you need to be comfortable with, and, as long as you are. Some people love it. Hey, I don't get. But there is that. Next thing, this is expensive. This is $150 US for a brass pen. And that is, at some level, a lot of money, right? There are much less expensive alternatives for a machined brass pen. Things like the Machine Era Classic, $20-30, right? So you can definitely get a brass pen for less money than this guy is. But, not the end of the world, made by a small maker, etc. I think for a lot of people, they'll still pay it quite happily here. Again, that's how you clean under the clip here. But anyways, so there is that. Next thing, this is a two-hand only pen, right? This is a pen that you really cannot take out of your pocket and unscrew with just one hand. I mean, you can unscrew it, but then you have to drop the clip someplace. It's designed to be opened with two hands. And so if you're looking at this as something relative to, a conventional pocket pen where you just kind of pop it out and there you go, this is much, much slower, right? This is not a high-speed, low-drag sort of pen. So there is that. It is also a very thick pen, right? It is just, if you look at it here, we are going to see, where is my ruler? Come here, ruler. I just had you for a review. Here you are. You're under my pens. I'm talking to my ruler. People, it's hot out. I need to get a drink or something. But anyways, this is about 4 inches. But what we're going to see here is it is about half an inch thick. which is pretty thick, right? This is very much a thick boy, and even the grip on it is relatively thick here. What we're going to see is, yeah, this guy remains quite thick in the grip section, less than a centimeter. Let's see, I actually have calipers here. I can do this right. Might as well. Yeah, we're looking at about 9.3 millimeters or 0.36 inches or so, depending on how I'm using my calipers here. But it's a thick boy, right? 100%. And especially for me with my relatively small hands, it's actually a little bit thicker than I might want, right? It feels a little bit too thick for me. And then finally, on the bad side, this is a heavy pen as well. Some of these variants are seriously heavy. The brass version that I have right here is listed on his website as 2.3 ounces. Let's see how bad my scale is. Come on. Scale, work with me here. 2.48, oh boy. Oh no, I'm sorry, he has it as 2.5 ounces for brass, 2.3 ounces for bronze, copper being 2.6 ounces. This is thick, and this is heavy, and it almost feels beefy as an aesthetic, right? This is kind of an overbuilt pen, which is sort of hilarious, right? The aluminum version that you can get is about 1.5 ounces lighter, which is a nice thing, but it is much, much heavier than the Pocket 6, for instance, this little guy right here, which comes in around 1.45 ounces. So going from the Pocket 6 to this guy is a marked increase in weight. And so if you are a person who does not like to carry a lot of extra weight, this is not going to be a joy for you necessarily, but if you don't mind it, then it's going to be fine. So to me, all of that is the bad, is that this is very heavy. It's, well, very heavy. Not like made of freaking iridium here. Oh, that'd be cool. Some variants are pretty heavy. It's thick. It's relatively slow to access, two-hand only. Pretty expensive, although, again, made in the States by a craftsperson. The patina is inevitable, and for some people, incredible. And the machine pen is a hilarious name. Final conclusion, this is a nice pen, right? It's made in the States. It uses any Parker refill with a good posting cap, even though that's not a requirement. A nice clip, the option to turn it into a cartridge-based rollerball or fountain pen. And it's got really excellent machining. It's gonna patina, it's gonna be pricey, it's gonna be two-hand only, it's a little slow to get to, it's thick, and in copper, brass, and bronze, it's a heavy one. But this is in many ways a textbook everyday carry fetish pen. What I mean by that is that this is, by the way, not a demerit. It's not a diss, it's not me saying, you know, I'm not throwing shade here, but it is sort of archetypal everyday carry nerd. Right? It is a very simple thing, right? It is a static capped Parker pen, but it is done with all of the trappings of EDC. This is done with everything that the everyday carry community, at least a lot of folks in it, hold dear, right, and cherish, right? It's got that kind of beefy, overbuilt, this could withstand anything construction. It's got nerdy options. It's got multiple materials, including some of the trendy metals, like, I'll be real here, brass. It's got multiple material. I already said that part. And it's being made by a small maker in an artisanal shop, right? With lots of different options for nerdy things like different, you know, fountain pen heads and cartridge-fed rollerballs. This is a pen nerd pen through and through, right? And that's going to be a thing. Right? That is absolutely its core nature. To me, personally, I kind of like the Pocket 6 a little bit more. Just the lightness and the sculpting make it stand out a little bit more. And although the thickness here is, that's maybe a little bit much, that's just because I have smaller hands than both. So this is more priorities than problem. But in the final conclusion front, I keep coming back to that EDC nerd thing, right? This is a tool whose value comes not necessarily from function and not necessarily from complexity or aesthetic, right? I mean, certainly it has its own aesthetic. It's not an unattractive pen for certain versions, but if we compare it against the Pocket 6, this is a sculpture as much as it is a pen, right? This machining pattern is incredibly intricate. It's very unique. You can hand this to somebody and they're going to be like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Whereas this, they're going to be like, oh, wow, that's a cylinder of brass. And that's cool. It just may not be what everyone's looking for. And it doesn't have the same level of complexity as some other options out there. Like the Grimsmo Saga is a very complex pen with a very fancy, complex, collar mechanism on the very top there, which I think, again, gets at a different part of the EDC heartstring, right? This is a very precise and very simple tool, right? It is a pen, fundamentally, and it is sort of a very basic pen. Mechanically, there is literally nothing going on here except threads and hunks of metal, right? That's literally all. But at the same time, it works, and it works quite well. But as a result, I think the reactions are going to be pretty sharply divided, right? Some people are going to look at this relative to something like the Machine Era Classic or another basic Parker pen like your Jotter here and go, oh my God, $150? Are you on crack? And, they're not wrong. I am crazy, right? This is a true fact, right? Normal people do not have large, boxes of pens for their everyday carry world, right? And you can certainly get a brass pen with a removable cap for far, far less. And if you're just looking for a Parker refill pen, then, honestly, for $20, the sky is your oyster. Do what you want, right? But the thing is, if you put this in the hand of an everyday carry nerd, you're going to have a different experience, right? Because we as everyday carry nerds will go all American Psycho business card scene on it, right? If you don't know the scene I'm talking about, I'm sure it's online, but it's basically a bunch of people obsessing over little tiny details, right? As I have just been doing. Oh, look at the subtle font design here. The little chamfers around the joining of the barrels here. Oh, look at these three little grooves and the smoothness of the threading and the patina. Oh, the patina, right? To a person like me who is insane, there is value in that. And as a result, this pen, despite being very simple, ends up feeling interesting and precise and well-crafted. And it does appeal, right? And if you are a person who likes pens enough to change from fountain to rollerball to ballpoint on a regular basis, then this is kind of 3 for the price of, well, actually, you're not getting the price of 1. It's 3 for the price of, I don't know, I can't do the percentage that quickly, but 1 1/3, 1.5, something along those lines. Someone will do the math in the comments, I'm sure. But if you are that kind of person who's looking at this and going, oh, that subtle font, or looking at this and going, oh, and then I could change then you're going to find this pretty compelling. So ultimately, it's kind of hard to say, right? This is not a slam dunk, everybody go buy one now sort of review, because this is a very specific thing for a very specific crowd at a very specific price. And so if you get it, if you were looking at this and going, oh, yes, indeed, please, I want one, then you're going to love this, right? This will be a great pen for you. But if you don't get it, then you're probably just going to see this guy as yet another machined pen, and it's not going to do anything for you, certainly at that price. So anyways, there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. This is the pen review. Bye now.